In this video, we're going to go over what to do with exponents when you have a division problem. So, exponents and division, the basic rule is this. When you divide with exponents, you need to subtract those exponents. So if you have a problem and you have exponents in the problem and you're dividing, you have to subtract those exponents. So the two basic rules are this. When you multiply, you add your exponents. When you divide, you subtract your exponents. So looking at this problem right here, I'm going to take x to the 15th, divide it by x to the 3rd. That means I'm going to take 15 and subtract what's in the bottom, minus 3. 15 minus 3, x to the 12th power. So what are we supposed to do with our exponents? When we divide, we're supposed to subtract. I write down my variable. I take my first exponent and subtract the exponent in the bottom. 12 minus 10 is 2. So when you divide, you subtract your exponents. Our next example. So again, when we divide, we're supposed to subtract our exponents. So that means I'm going to take 3 and subtract 5. This is where I need to know my rules for integers. The signs are different. If the signs are different, I subtract and take the sign of the larger number. So if I have a 5 and a 3 and I subtract those, I'm going to get 2, but then I take the sign of the larger number. Many times they'll say, express your answer as positive exponents. So if I have this situation right here, I need to remember what to do when I have negative exponents and how to change them into positive exponents. Remember, the very first step, this better be written as a fraction. I put it over 1 to write it as a fraction. To change this exponent's sign, I flip this fraction. Put the 1 in the top, put the x in the bottom, and the act of me moving this into the bottom changes the sign of that exponent. So if it says express your answer using positive exponents, you're going to have to do this extra step right here. Let's try another problem where it says express your answer using positive exponents. What are we supposed to do with exponents? When we divide, we're supposed to subtract them. So I'm going to write x and I'm going to take 8 and subtract 12. The signs are different. If the signs are different, I subtract. A 12 and an 8 subtracted is 4, and take the sign of the larger number. It says express your answer using positive exponents. My first step to change this to a positive exponent is to write this expression as a fraction. Once it's written as a fraction, I flip it. The act of flipping it changes the sign of that exponent only. So again, they want us to express our answer using positive exponents. What's our rule for dividing? If I divide, I'm supposed to subtract my exponents. So I'm going to write down my variable. I'm going to take negative 5 and I'm going to subtract a negative 8. Again, this goes back to the fact that if I've got two signs beside each other, I'm supposed to multiply them together and make one sign. So this is really negative 5 plus 8. The signs are different. If the signs are different, I subtract and take the sign of the larger number. 8 is the larger number, so it's going to be positive. Our next example. Again, if you're going to divide, you need to subtract your exponents. So I'll write my variable down. I'm going to take 7, subtract it from the one in the bottom. 4, 7 minus 4 gives me positive 3. Since it's positive, I don't have to do anything else. Next example, we're going to switch the numbers around. I've got x to the 4th divided by x to the 7th. If I divide, I need to subtract my exponents. That's going to be 4 minus 7. 4 minus 7 is going to give me negative 3. They want you to express this as positive exponents, so I need to write this as a fraction first. Once it's written as a fraction, I flip it, and the act of flipping it is going to change that -3 to a +3. Next example. When I divide, I need to subtract my exponents. For this problem, that's going to be -1 minus a -6. This is a situation where I have two negative signs beside each other. That means I need to multiply these two negatives and change it to +6. So now I have -1 plus 6. The signs are different. Signs are different. I subtract, take the sign of the larger number. Since this is a positive exponent, I don't have to do anything else to this problem. Next example. When you divide, you subtract your exponents. I can clearly see the exponent right here. When I don't see an exponent, it has an exponent of 1. That means I can go ahead and write that 1 there. This is going to be 1 minus a -1. When there are two signs beside each other, multiply them together, make it one sign. This is going to be x1 plus 1 up there in the top. 1 plus 1 is 2. The reason why anything raised to the power of 0 is equal to 1. We're going to go over why something raised to the 0 power is always going to be equal to 1. So 9 raised to the 0 power is 1. X raised to the 0 power is 1. Anything raised to the 0 power is 1. Here's the reason why. If I normally divide something, I think people know that 5 divided by 5 is 1. Or 10 divided by 10, that's also going to be 1. X divided by x, that's also going to be 1. But we're going to use our rules for exponents and see what we get. If this is true, then if I write it with exponents, it should also be true. Meaning, what's the exponent on both of these 5s? There's an exponent of 1 on each one of these. All right, 5, and what do I do when I divide with my exponents? I subtract them. 5 to the 0 power. So if 5 divided by 5 is equal to 1, then when I use my rules for exponents and I get 5 to the 0 power, that better also be equal to 1. So let me say that again. There's an exponent of 1 right here. There's an exponent of 1 right here. When I do this problem, I'm supposed to subtract my exponents. I get x to the 0 power. So if x divided by x, if that's equal to 1, then x to the 0 power also has to be equal to 1. Anything raised to the 0 power is equal to 1. Now we're going to look at an example that has more than one variable in it. I'm going to start off with my x's. I'm going to write down an x. My rule is when I divide, I subtract my exponents, and I'm only going to subtract the exponents on the x. This is going to be -1 minus 2. Then I'm going to write down the other variable I'm using, y. Again, my rule is when I divide, I subtract my exponents. That's going to give me -1 minus 3. -1 minus 2 is going to give me -3. And -1 minus 3 is going to give me -4 on the y. Again, they want you to write this with positive exponents. My first step is to write this entire thing as a fraction. I'm going to flip this fraction, put the 1 in the top, and the act of moving these variables into the bottom is going to change the sign of each one of those. I'm going to have x to the +3, y to the +4.